All right. Good morning, everybody. We are starting at the very top of Vav Amid Aleph. We are making our way through the very first Mishnah of Baba Kama. So the Mishnah started, got our Arba Avos and Zikin, and then the Mishnah said, we needed to say each one. The Torah needed to say each one because there's various qualities, that each one has that I couldn't necessarily learn if I only had the other one. Fine. And then the Mishnah says, Asara Shava Shebehen, Asara Shava Shebehen. Where is it? Shedarkan lahazek l'shmirasan alecho shehizach havamazek l'shalim tashumi nezek b'mei tava'aretz. So the tzara shav is that all of these things, the derech is for them to do damage, and therefore you have to guard them. And the Gemara is basically bothered by what did this last line of tzara shav add? It very much sounds like the way Rashi explains. It very much sounds like there's some damage. There's something that doesn't neatly fall into one of these four categories that I kind of need both of them in order to learn them from a tzara shav. So the Gemara is ultimately going to give four different potential ideas of what could be included from this line in the Mishnah of Atzara Shav. So again, we're right at the top of Vav Amid Aleph. Atzara Shav Shebehen. La'asuye mai. So again, what is this case? What are these words coming to add? B'marabaya la'asuye avnos lakino maso shenichem rosh gago v'naflu b'ruach matzuya ve'eziko. The case would be I put something on my roof, whatever it is, right? My wife tells me to take it somewhere, and I'm like, I'll just put it on the roof and no one will be the wiser and everything will be good. But the problem is, right, a wind comes, a regular wind, and it blows it into the street, and now someone gets hurt. And that would be the case that I wouldn't know from the four avos in the Mishnah, and therefore I needed this tzara shava. So the Gemara says, hey, chidami, if this item that was on your roof literally hurt someone while it's falling on the way to the ground, that is essentially Aish. That's a tolda of Aish. Right? What's Aish? Aish is I light my fire in my property and the wind takes it and it damages someone. Mm-hmm. Same thing over here. I put something in my property and the wind comes and takes it and it damages someone. What is the defining quality of Aish? That is some sort of koach acher, right? The wind comes and moves it, and therefore I have to guard it, and therefore I'm liable if it damages someone. Right? So if the case is just saying where I put something on my roof and it falls and damages someone on the way down, I don't need a tzara shava for that. That is just a tolda of Aish. So that Ella basar denaichi. Rather, what you'll say is I put this thing on my roof, it fell into the street, and it didn't damage someone on the way down, it damaged someone on the street. Someone then walked into it or whatever it is. So, as Alan's about to say, right? So idafker rinu. So what is the case? If I was now mafker this washing machine that I was supposed to get rid of, but I just put it on my roof hoping it would be a victimless crime, right? So if I just was mafker this thing, bein l'rav bein shmuel hainu bar. That is the definition of a bar. Something in Rosh Hashanah, I was supposed to watch it. Someone else comes, right? Umayishna bar. What's bar's defining characteristic? From the second I dig this bar, it is immediately a madzik. And therefore, it was on me to make sure no one would fall in. So the second this thing ends up in the street, it's on me to make sure that no one gets hurt by my washing machine, right? Ella delo after. So maybe I'll say I was never mafker this item, and therefore maybe it's not bar, right? I wasn't mafker it, and maybe it's different. But the Gemara still says
specifically has to be hefker.
Well, it's machlokas Rav Shmuel, so we're about to get into it. Yeah, this came up already in the Masechta, and it'll come up a few times today. But a bar b'shus harabim, an item b'shus harabim, if you were mafker it, then everyone agrees it's bar. If you weren't mafker, it's machlokas Rav Shmuel, but Shmuel says bar, and that's going to be kind of how we're learning today. Ella delo afkurinu. So maybe I wasn't mafker this item, but l'shmuel da'amar kulam iboro labadnu hainu bar. But we haven't really gotten out of this question. At least the Pishita Shmuel, the Pishita Rav, maybe we did, but at least for today's daf, we're not focusing on Rav. We're focusing on Shmuel. So even if you weren't mafker this item, that hasn't helped, at least l'pishita Shmuel. So the Gemara says, la'olam da'afkarin. Really, I'll tell you the cases where I was mafker it. Alan's question, so why isn't this bar? So the Gemara says, v'lo dami labar. But this is not this case of my item on my roof that falls into the Rosh Hashanah that I was mafker is not exactly like bar. Why? Because ma'ala bar can ein koach achar me'uravo. In a typical case of bar, I did all the work, right? I was the one that dug it. We don't need the wind to help me with bar. But these have an additional fact here where the wind came and blew the thing from my roof onto the street. So if I only had bar, I wouldn't necessarily know that I should be chayav for this case. The Gemara says, okay, but That's why I need Aish, right? Aish has koach ben, and yet you're still chayiv. But the Gemara says, Ma'ale Aish, kein dar kolei lahazik. But Aish, the defining characteristic of Aish, one of them is that it moves, right? The wind moves it. These, once the wind moves it to its spot, now it's here for good, right? So it's not exactly Aish either. Gemara says, bar tuchiach. That's why we have this Tzad HaShaveh, right? And that's what the Mishnah comes when it says the Tzad HaShaveh. So again, the first attempt, not even the attempt, but Abaya's view of what the line in the Mishnah of Tzad HaShaveh is coming to include. It's coming to include this case of you put something on your roof, wind comes, blows it into the street, and now someone gets hurt. It's not quite bar, it's not quite Aish, it's a Tzad HaShaveh of bar and Aish. Okay. Answer number 2. Rava Amar Lasuye Bar Hamiskalgel Baragli Adam Baragli Behem. It's literally the proverbial like kicking the can down the road. So I put something in, there was just a robin. Clearly it was a bar. I should not have done that, but luckily for me, no one got hurt. But then an animal came, a person came, and they moved it somewhere else. Someone kicked it down the road, and then someone got hurt. That's the case. So the Gemara says again, if I made it hefker, again, being the Rav being Shmuel Hainu bar. That's essentially bar. Ma'ishna bar came to Tilas Asiyas Lenezek Shmatan Alacha Haninam to Tilas Asiyas Lenezek Shmatan Alacha. Ella the lo afternoon. So maybe the case will be where I wasn't after the item. But again, the Shmuel the Amar Kulam Bar Lo Hainu bar. So the Gemara says again, like we said last time, the olam the afternoon. Really, I was after this item. But again, the lo dami labar. But it's not exactly similar to bar. Why? In the classic case of bar, I did everything. I dug the bar, and the bar is where it is. In this case, granted, I put it down, but someone else moved it. Someone else moved it somewhere else. So maybe you'd say, listen, maybe I'm chayiv in bar if I did all the work. But the second someone else gets involved, I don't know, maybe that should be on him. Right? Now, again, it might not be a person. It could have been an animal, right? Someone moved this thing from the initial spot. And maybe that would be the havamina. So the Gemara says, therefore, shar yochech, I need shar, because shar is also something where, like, I'm clearly not the only person doing something. There's a shar here that's doing the goring, right? So, and still we see that doesn't potter me the fact that my shor does something, or a shor does something. But the Gemara says, ma shar I would be able to learn this case from shar directly, because a shar, the derech of a shar is to go out and damage. And clearly this item on the street, the derech isn't, to damage anything. But again, the Gemara says bar tochiach. Bar shows you that you don't necessarily need something about the derech to go to damage in order for you to be liable. And again, the Tzad HaShaveh is that this item is something that you're responsible for, and therefore you got to watch it. So again, case number 2, or option number 2 is I put something in the Rosh Hashanah, but it doesn't stay there. Someone moves it, someone kicks it, and then it damages over there. And it would be a Tzad HaShaveh between bar and shar. Ravada bar Ahava Amar, we're going to have the third option, Lasuye Haditanya, to include this case, this brisa that we're going to see later in our Masechta. So kol elu she'amru poskin bivosein v'garfin ma'arosein bimosa chama ein lehem rishus bimosa gshamim yesh lehem rishus. So the case we're talking about, again, this is the time prior to our current plumbing systems, where I guess people would have various garbage and people would have whatever it is, and it would be in their house, and every now and again they'd have to clean it. So what are they supposed to do? So you can't just dump it in the street, right? Because that would be gross. So what Bezdin basically said, that what the rules were, is in the summertime you definitely can't move it into the street, right? People can get hurt. It's gross. In the wintertime, if it's raining, then I guess the streets are kind of self-cleaning. So maybe if you time it right, when if there's going to be a lot of rain, you can move it into the street. The rain will take it all away. No harm, no foul. That was kind of the thing. So in the Yemos Shamim, you can empty out these pipes, or you can empty out this zevel into the street. Stop in the Yemos Shamim, but not in the Yemos Chama. But the brisa continues. But afal pisha b'rishus. But even though in the Yemos Shamim you have the right to do this, you still have to be careful. Im hezeku chayavim l'shalim. If someone gets hurt by your zevel in the street, you're still going to be chayiv to pay for it. And that's the case that we're talking about. The case is where you had permission to dump your zevel into the street, but yet someone got hurt by it. That would be a case where we need a tzad HaShaveh. We need a combination of at least 2 of the avos hamazik in our Mishnah to learn this case. But again, the Gemara says, hey, then what's the case over here? If I'm literally shoveling my garbage into the street and it hits someone and he gets hurt, so kokohu, that's adam hamazik, literally. right? That's the same way if I threw a baseball and I hit someone, I would be in trouble. So if I throw my garbage into the Rishus Rabim, also, right? Ella Basar de nice. So rather you'll tell me, no, it didn't hit someone on the way down. It fell into the street and then someone slipped, someone, whatever it is. But the Gemara again, if I was mafkir my zevel, bein the rabban, bein the shmuel, hainu bar, right? As Alan let us off this morning, that is essentially bar. Maishna bar tchilas asiyas lenezek amon chashmras alecha, hani nami tchilas asiyas lenezek amon chashmras alecha. Ella delo afkurnis. Maybe the cases where I wasn't mafkir my zevel. Why would I not be mafkir my zevel? I have no idea, but that's beside the point. But even still, the Shmuel, the Amar Kulam Yibar Lamanu, hainu bar. According to Shmuel, this is still bar. So Olam Da'afrin. Really, I'll tell you that I was mafkir myself. And therefore, if you Rav and Shmuel, this should just be bar. But I'll tell you, below Dami Labar. But if I only had bar, I wouldn't know this. Why? Ma'alabar Shekain Shalober Shus. In a regular case of bar, I don't ever start digging bars and Rishus around him. So from the get-go, what I'm doing is not allowed. Tomar Bahani Dibur Shus. But here, Bezdin gave me explicit permission to dump this in the street during the Mosat Shem. So maybe I'd have a Havamina. If I only had bar, I wouldn't necessarily know. The Gemara says, Shar Yuchef, that's why I need a Tzara Shaveh with Shar. Because Mal is Shar, Shar Yuchef. Clearly, I have permission to own a Shar, right? And that doesn't get me out of liability when the Shar goes wild, right? But the Gemara says, Mal is Shar, Shkein Darko Leila Filahazik. Again, if I only had Shar, I wouldn't necessarily know this because the Shar has the quality that it has the derech of going out and damaging, which you can't say by Zevel.
Well,
in
at
the
least by
street.
Rego or by Shane. Not necessarily by Karen.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. By Regel, for sure, it has the derech. Yeah. Or I don't know about the derech. We would say Hezeko Matsu. I don't know if we would necessarily say the derech. But at least by Karen. Yeah. At least by Karen. Shkein dark b'leilach lahazik bar tuchich lazar adin. That was case number 3. And case number 4, Ravina Amar La Hadit Sanan, HaKosel, Elon Shanaflu Rishus Arabim. Let's say a person has a wall, a tree in his property, and then it falls with no fault of your own. Let's assume you had no reason to expect it to fall, right? Veheziku, and then it damages someone. Putter. Again, there was nothing you could have done, like you didn't know. Yeah, Putter Milashalim, exactly. But Nashnulos Man Lakut, that's Elon Milastar Kosel. Let's say who the powers that be, the Bezdin or whoever, they said to you, they're walking by your property, like, by the way, this wall is in horrible shape. You got to knock this thing down. And you have 60 days to knock this thing down, right, safely. And but then they gave you 60 days and it fell, I don't know, on day 15. So then again, they gave you 60 days. It fell down before the 60 days, you're fine. But if it falls down on day 65 and then it hurt someone, now you are responsible. You were given warning. This thing was bad and it was dangerous and you should have taken care of it. So that is the case where we need the tzara shavah. So again, the Gemara says, now the 4th time, right? Hey, chidami, the afkara, if you were mafkir this Elon, so bein l'rav, bein l'shmuel, hainu bar. This is essentially bar. This is your property in Rishus Harabim, or at least it was your property in Rishus Harabim, and you got to take care of it. Ma'ishna bar dehezeka matzui yishmarasan alecha. What's the defining quality of bar? That it's a zeka matzui, and still it's your responsibility. Hani nami zeka matzui yishmarasan alecha. Now again, it's kind of like what Eddie was just saying. Throughout the entire sugya of bar, the defining quality has never been hezeka matzui. It's always been hezeka matzui. If anything, is more of a shame thing, right? Or one of the short things. So Rashi does say it's true, but it's also true by bar. It's more true by the other thing. So you have to understand why the Gemara this time said this by bar. I don't know, but interesting. But either way, the point is these things would essentially be a tolda of bar. I need to law of Kurenu. So then Lishmuel Damar Kulami Bar Lamanu Hainu Bar. Same question we've been asking now. This is now the 4th time. But the Gemara says, La'olam da afkarinu. Really, I was mafkir my tree, my wall, whatever it was. But below dami labar. But if I only had bar, I wouldn't know this because it's not totally similar to bar. Why? Because ma'alabar shechein tchilas asiyas l'nezek kamarbani shechein tchilas asiyas l'nezek. Again, a defining characteristic of bar is from the second I dug it, it was a bar, right? It was a problem. These things, this could have been my fence for 20 years. Right? Clearly, it wasn't doing anything.
When you start digging a bar.
Well, at least when it becomes a bar. Once it's the 9 tefachim, the 10 tefachim, at that point, it's a problem. Whereas shore isn't like that, and my fence isn't like that, and my tree isn't like that, right? That's kind of the difference. But the Gemara says shor yochiach, right? When I have a shor, it's not tchilas, it's just lenezek. It's a baby shor for a few months or longer, right? So ma'al shor shkein darko leilech lahazik bar tochiach again, and those are our 4 cases, and that's why the Gemara, the Mishnah needed to say tzara shavash behen for one of these 4 cases, depending on the emo. Okay, so moving along, the Mishnah said hizik, and when it damages chav hamazik, the mazik is chayiv. The Gemara says chav hamazik. Chayev hamazik. Where are all the yuds go? Right. The word is chayev, not chav. Not chayev hamazik of wireless. So Rabbi Yudam Rav. Hi Tana Yerushalmi. Who? This Tana is Yerushalmi. The Tana Lishna Cleveland. It's funny when you do learn Yerushalmis, which I never did, but Shkalim is Yerushalmi, right? The wording, everything is all off a little bit. Everything's a little bit off. So this Tana, now again, you have to understand what this means, because I thought Rebbe he wrote all the Mishnayos. I don't know, but clearly Rebbe, took some from some Yerushalmi, and therefore the language is a little bit off. But again, it means chayiv. It's just written a little bit different because it's the Tanas of Yerushalmi. What? Chav instead of chayiv? I don't know. Either way. So we're going to start a new sugya. In a perfect world, we'd end now because we're really just going to end smack in the middle of the sugya. But we'll go and we'll go for another 15, 20 lines. So before we start, right, we're going to talk about Meitav, right, the sugya of Meitav, and is it Meitav of the Nizik, Meitav of the Mazik? It's important to look at the pasuk inside. So the pasuk, this is in Mishpatim, and this is with a reference to Shane and Regel. So the pasuk says, Ki yav er ish sodeh o kerem, right? So if you basically, you lead your animal, this is Chav Beis, this is in Mishpatim. So Shmos, Chav Beis, pasuk down. So Ki yav er ish sodeh o kerem, so the point is, I'm leading my animal into someone else's sadeh, right? And either he eats or he tramples. Meitav sadehu umeitav karmo yishalem. You got to pay with the best of your stuff. So that's the pasuk. So the Gemara says, l'shalem tishlemin as a ton rabbanon. Meitav sadehu umeitav karmo yishalem. That's the end of the pasuk. You have to pay with the best of your stuff. Meitav Sadehu shall nizik, Meitav Karmo shall nizik, diver Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel learns Meitav Sadehu, Meitav Karmo, to say when we say the best of the field, it's not referring to the mazik, it's referring to the nizik. So if Ruvain's animal damages Shimon's field, Meitav Sadehu, Meitav Karmo is referring to Shimon, it's referring to the nizik. We got to evaluate what is the nizik's best property, and that's what the mazik has to pay. That's what Rabbi Shmuel understands that puzzle. Rabbi Akiva Omer Loba Kazav El Gos Lin Zakin Min Ha'idis V'Kal V'Chomer LaHektish. So Rabbi Akiva has a very cryptic response. The Kal V'Chomer LaHektish part is going to be Yoel's problem tomorrow, but the first part, essentially, he's arguing with Rabbi Shmuel, but it's very unclear what exactly he's saying, right? Because he doesn't seem to be responding at all to Rabbi Shmuel. So again, Rabbi Shmuel said Meitav Sadeh Meitav Karmi Yishalim is referring to the Meitav of the Nizik. And Rabbi Akiva seems to be arguing in some fashion. We'll see in the Gemara exactly what he means. But the Gemara is taking Rabbi Shmuel's line to mean the following, right? Let's say an animal comes and he damages one row of produce. Rabbi Shmuel, what the Gemara thinks Rabbi Shmuel means right now is you would take that row of produce quantitatively, right, a full row, and say, let's look at Shimon's property. Let's find the best field he has and pay back one row from the best of his property. So if the damage that I did was only $100, but because it was inferior property, let's look at the best field that he has, and one row could be $500, and therefore you owe him $500, notwithstanding the fact that you only damaged 100, right? That's what the Gemara thinks Rabbi Shmuel says. The Gemara asks, Rabbi Shmuel, Achal Shmeina, Mishal Shmeina. If you damaged good stuff, I get it. You have to pay back good. But Achal Kusha Mishal Shmeina, if I damaged inferior property, I have to pay the same quantity in Shmeina? So Amar Avidi Bar Avin, no, that can't be. You ate a row. We just don't know what grade the property was, and therefore we say you have to pay the best. But Amar Rava said, what are you talking about? How does that make any sense? If we knew that he only damaged an inferior, a grade C property, of course that's all you pay. Now that we don't know, we just say you have to pay from the best. This is Nezikin 101. right? It's always on the nizik to prove what you owe. So if we don't know, so pay the worst and let the nizik come and bring you a raya. Ella Amar Rav Achar Yaakov. No, that's not what's happening over here. What's happening is Hachamai Eskina no tries to idis din nizik kiziburis the mazik. The case is where the Reuven and Shimon in our example, they don't have similar fields. Reuven happens to maybe be a wealthier person, therefore he has, and there's his inferior property, his diburis is on the same level as the idis of the nizik. And this is goof of the question. When we say meitav sadeyu, so again, you're going to pay the $100. That's all you damage. We know you damaged $100. The question is the $100, does it come from the best of Shimon, or does it come from the best of Reuven? Is Reuven obligated to pay the best, even though what he'll be paying is better than what he damaged, but he's got to pay from his best? Or do you say, no, we just look to the best of Shimon, right? Rabbi Shmuel, Savar, Nizik Shaiminan, Rabbi Kiva Savar, Mazik Shaiminan, and that's the machlokas. Rabbi Shmuel says you look at the best of the Nizik, even if it's not quite the best of the Mazik. And Rabbi Kiva says, no, you look at the best of the Mazik. When you damage, granted, you're still only going to pay the $100, but it's going to be the $100 from your best fields.
And this is a case where he has no liquid assets, and so therefore he has to pay
from land.
from land.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. If he has money, he pays money.
I think generally,
right.
but yeah, I think
That
generally,
makes sense.
yeah. So my time of Rabbi Shmuel. So what's pshat in Rabbi Shmuel? Why would you say b'nizik shaiminan? So nemar sada lemata, v'nemar sada lemala, ma sada amar lemala d'nizik, af sada amar lemata d'nizik. That's what we went through the pasuk first. But the pasuk says when you lead your animals in someone's field, the pasuk says sada twice, and clearly the pasuk is referring to the nizik's field. It's me leading my animal into someone else's field, and the animal doing damage in that field. So that sada is clearly referring to the nizik. Comes along the sada at the end of the pasuk and says meitav sadehu, meitav karmi yishalim. The Gzera Shava says the same way that sada in the beginning of the pasuk was referring to the sada of the nizik. So too the meitav sadehu is referring to the sada of the nizik. That's Rabbi Shmuel understands the pasuk. Rabbi Akiva says meitav sadehu umeitav karmo yishalem. No, clearly just reading the words of the pasuk, right? The words of the pasuk say you pay meitav sadehu yishalem. It's the person paying, it's his meitav sadehu. It's the meitav sadehu of the mazik. And the way Rashi explains it's very good. Rabbi Akiva is basically saying to Rabbi Shmuel, I hear you have Gzera Shava, but Gzera Shava can't usurp Pashim Pshat in the pasuk. The pasuk says meitav sadehu yishalem, clearly referring to the mazik. So we have a Gzera Shava, we have to learn something else from Gzera Shava, but you can't totally usurp, the Pashut reading. Here, let's read Rashi inside. Meitav sadehu shala ich to come shalem. I don't know if you can see it, but it says the hainu sada shlamazik v'lo asi Gzera Shava v'akar le'lekar. You can't take a Gzera Shava and just totally uproot the Pashut meaning of the pasuk. So Rabbi Shmuel says back, he says, I hear, but ahani Gzera Shava v'ahani kra. I can learn my Gzera Shava, and I can still learn a case where we can keep the Pashut understanding of the pasuk that meitav sadehu is referring to the mazik. How do we do that? So ahani Gzera Shava kidika amina. The Gzera Shava will be for the case that we just talked about, where the maziks, the mazik and the nizik, their fields aren't the same, and the question is, whose field? How do we value this? And that we say it's the idis of the nizik. But ahani kra. But I can also use the pasuk going to isle la mazik idis v'ziburis. The case will be where the mazik, Reuven in our case, has idis and ziburis, and the idis l'nizik, and the nizik only has one piece of property, so therefore it's by definition it's going to be his best, right? But the ziburis, the mazik, lo shavya ki idis the nizik. The problem is this one field that the nizik has fits in between the mazik's idis and ziburis, right? And now the question is, what should the mazik pay? Should he pay his idis or can he pay his ziburis? He would love to pay the nizik's idis, he just doesn't have it. So what does he do? So the Mishalim lay the meitav dite. So he has to pay with the mazik's idis. The lo mati amar lay ta'at gabi miziburis elagabi bimeitav. And the point is, you would have a havamina that maybe, like we said, like almost like a multi-mechaber lavraya, where the guy's like, listen, right, if you Rabbi Shmuel, I owe your idis. I don't have your idis, so therefore take maybe the next best thing that I have. I shouldn't be obligated to pay better than what I owe. So I can't give you your idis, so take my ziburis. And Rabbi Shmuel says, no. The Pashut understanding of the pasuk, Meitav Sadehu, says, no. In that situation, the mazik, you have to go up, and you have to give him the next best thing going up, not going down, and therefore you owe him your idis, not your zibur.
So we're evaluating on the basis of the